That night, I was blocked at the door of my sister's engagement party. My father said it plainly, "You will embarrass the family." Then a text from a stranger appeared. "I know about Brightpath. If you dare step on that stage this Saturday, I will show the whole city they misjudged you." 3 days later, in front of 500 people, the microphone was passed to me, and my entire family froze. My name is Delaney Brooke. I am 31 years old, and I am an English teacher at Pinecrest High. This is a fact that I have learned to say with my shoulders back, a statement of identity rather than an apology. I live in a fourth-floor walk-up in Denver, in a neighborhood where the rents are still manageable if you do not mind the sound of the highway. My life is a minimalist, curated existence, built on a salary that requires careful budgeting, but allows for the things that matter: good coffee beans, endless stacks of secondhand books, and the freedom to stay late helping a student who is struggling. My alarm goes off at 5 a.m. It is a sharp, digital cry in the darkness, and I never hit snooze. The hardwood floor is cold on my feet as I move to the kitchen, starting the coffee maker before I brush my teeth. While the rest of the city sleeps, I am at my small laminate desk, grading essays on The Great Gatsby or outlining lesson plans. By 6:30, I am in my old hatchback, the one with the rattling sound in the passenger door, driving to Pinecrest. I run the free auxiliary tutoring program before first bell. It is not mandated, it is not paid, but it is where the real work happens. It is where the kid who believes he is stupid finally understands subject-verb agreement, and the girl who has been silent all semester finally shares an opinion about a poem. I love this job. I love the smell of old paper and graphite, the chaotic energy of the bell, the quiet click of a student's brain finally grasping a new idea. My family, however, finds my chosen profession a source of quiet, persistent shame. My father, Robert Brooke, is a man who measures the world in square footage and stock performance. He has never understood me. To him, my career is a failure to launch. Glorified babysitting, he calls it at Thanksgiving, his voice booming across the dining room. You had the intelligence for law, for finance. Instead, you chose to change diapers for teenagers. It's a waste. I learned long ago not to argue. His opinions are concrete, and my mother is his silent accomplice, a woman who specializes in avoiding conflict by polishing the silver until it blinds you. My younger sister, Vivian, learned the lesson differently. She did not fight. She assimilated. She is beautiful, charming, and understands the transactional nature of our family's love. And she just won the jackpot. Vivian is engaged to Ethan Harrington. The Harringtons are not just Denver wealthy. They are a legacy. Their name is etched onto museum wings, university libraries, and the letterhead of the Harrington Philanthropy Group, a behemoth of hospitality and charitable giving. Vivian, my father declared, had secured the family's future. Which brought us to the current crisis, the official engagement dinner, welcoming the Harringtons. It was scheduled for Thursday at the Marlowe, a restaurant so exclusive you could not find its number online. It was the kind of place where the air itself felt expensive. I was finalizing grades on Tuesday afternoon when my father called. I almost let it go to voicemail, but a familiar dread urged me to answer. Delaney. He never used greetings. Hi, Dad. What's up? About Thursday night. You are not to come. The silence in my classroom was absolute. I stared at a poster of Robert Frost on the wall. What? The engagement dinner? Vivian's dinner? That is correct. We cannot have you there. I closed my eyes, the familiar cold stone dropping into my stomach. Why? I already bought a dress. It's navy. This is not a high school potluck. Delaney, the Harringtons will be there. Ethan's parents, his brother, they will ask what you do. We cannot, in good conscience, present you as the teacher while we are finalizing this merger of families. It is a lowly profession. It makes us look small. It devalues your sister. Devalues. The word hung in the air, sharp and metallic. I tried to speak, but the shame he intended me to feel was suffocating. I felt shame. but not for my job. I felt it for him. Dad, that's insane. I'm her sister. And as her sister, you will do what is best for her, he said, his voice dropping to the low, non-negotiable tone that ended all debate. We will say you had a school emergency, a sick student, something appropriate to your station. Before I could respond, I heard the faint click of the extension, my mother's voice, thin and reedy. Delaney, dear, please, do not make this difficult for your sister. This is her moment. Just let her have this. They hung up. I sat there for 10 minutes, unmoving. The school emptied out. The janitor's buffer started whining in the hall. My phone, sitting on the desk, lit up with a new text message. It was from Vivian. Of course, she did not call. A text was cleaner, less confrontational. Hey, Dee, just heard you talk to Dad. So sorry about the mix-up. It's all just happening so fast. Listen, about the dinner. It might just be easier for everyone if you told people you were at that education conference in Boulder. Just to maintain appearances, it's what Dad is telling the Harringtons. You get it. Kisses. I did not get it. I did not get any of it. I turned the phone over, grabbed my bag, and walked out of the school I loved, feeling more like a failure than I had in my entire adult life. I drove home, the rattling in the passenger door sounding like a mocking laugh. I skipped dinner. I ignored the drafts I was supposed to be grading. I changed out of my work clothes and into an old sweatshirt, the anger and humiliation settling into a hard, cold knot in my chest. To be disappeared for the sake of appearances. To be deemed unworthy of sitting at a table because I taught children how to read. I sat on my worn sofa and opened my laptop. The screen illuminated my small, dark apartment. I had one space in my life that my family knew nothing about. One place where I was not just a teacher. I logged into the secure portal, the logo, one I had designed myself on a free website, glowed back at me. The Bright Path Initiative. This was my secret, my armor, my real work. For 3 years, my colleague Sabrina and I had been building Bright Path from nothing. We started it with our savings, driven by the frustration of watching bright, at-risk kids fall through the cracks of a standardized system. Bright Path was a nonprofit, but it was really a technology, a personalized, adaptive learning platform for students in underfunded districts. It identified how they learned, not just what they failed to memorize. I was not just Delaney Brooke, the teacher, I was the co-founder and executive director. I looked at the dashboard. My family saw me as a glorified babysitter earning a meager salary. They did not see the metrics. They did not see the 9,800 students across Colorado we were currently serving. They did not see the graph showing an average increase of 2.1 grade levels in reading comprehension in a single academic year. I clicked on the impact report we had finalized last week, the one we had sent out to a few small, targeted family foundations, hoping for a modest grant to fund a new server. It was 40 pages of hard data, case studies, and scalable financial modeling. It was the most important thing I had ever built. My family thought I was a failure. Looking at these numbers, I knew I was not. My phone buzzed again, another text message. I assumed it was Vivian, offering more placating nonsense. I picked it up. The number was unknown. Ms. Brooke, my name is Logan Harrington. I am Ethan Harrington's older brother and the COO of the Harrington Philanthropy Group. My blood ran cold. A Harrington. Was this about the dinner? Had my father already coordinated the Boulder conference lie with them? I read the next line. I have spent the last 48 hours reviewing the impact report for the Bright Path Initiative. Your data on adaptive learning in high-need rural districts is the most compelling I have seen this fiscal year. I stopped breathing. He knew about Bright Path. How did he know? The Harrington Group is hosting the Archer Conservatory Gala this Saturday. At this event, we are announcing the recipient of our primary national education grant. It is a 5-year, $15 million commitment. I am formally inviting the Bright Path Initiative to submit a final proposal. My heart was hammering against my ribs. $15 million. I read the last part of the text, and the room tilted. The parameters are strict. The final submission deadline is in exactly 72 hours. You will be required to give a 20-minute live presentation of your scalability model during the gala's main program. We expect a full contingent of press, the entire board, and all major community stakeholders. I look forward to seeing what you can do. 72 hours. A live presentation. I immediately opened a new tab and searched for the Archer Conservatory Gala. It was the biggest philanthropic event in the state. And there, on the main sponsor page, was the list of confirmed VIP tables. Table number 1, Mr. and Mrs. Robert Brooke, Miss Vivian Brooke, Mr. Ethan Harrington. My father had banned me from the engagement dinner because my profession was an embarrassment. In 3 days, I had just been invited to be the keynote speaker at an event where he would be sitting in the front row. I called Sabrina Cole, my co-founder. The minute my hands stopped shaking. "Okay, Delaney," she said, her voice perpetually tired and sharp. "You sound like you just saw a ghost or ran a marathon. What is it?" "We got invited to bid for the Harrington National Grant," I said. The line was silent. I could hear her processing the implication. "The Harrington Grant, the one that's $15 million, the one that's awarded at the Archer Gala, this Saturday." "Yes," I said, "that one." "Delaney, that is in 3 days. The submission process for that takes 6 months. It is impossible. Who called you?" "Logan Harrington, Ethan's brother. He's seen the impact report. He texted me." Another beat of silence. How in the hell did Logan Harrington see the impact report? "I have no idea. But he has. He's serious. 72 hours. Live presentation. Sabrina, I think this is it." "I am coming over," she said. "All business. I am bringing the heavy-duty whiteboard and the good markers. Do not make coffee. I will get the good stuff." She hung up. BrightPath was my life, compressed into a Series D of secure servers and password-protected files. Sabrina and I had built it from nothing. We were colleagues first, both teaching at Pinecrest, both staying late, both watching the same bright kids hit the same systemic walls. I was English. She was math. I saw the failure in comprehension. She saw the failure in logic. We built it with our savings. For me, that meant 3 years of cashing out the meager retirement funds I had accrued. For Sabrina, it meant postponing her dream of a condo and living in a terrible basement apartment. We learned basic coding. We begged a server company for a discount. We convinced our first pilot school to let us try the software, for free, just to get the data. And the data was good. In 3 years, we were serving 9,800 students across Colorado. Our adaptive learning system, the one that diagnoses why a student is struggling with a text, not just that they are, was producing an average reading comprehension jump of 2.1 grade levels in a single academic year. It was a staggering number. It was the kind of metric that could change education policy, and it was the reason I had kept it a secret from my family. To them, my hobby would have been just another flavor of failure. My father, Robert, would have analyzed the balance sheet and declared it a money pit. "Charity," he would scoff, "is what people with too much time do when they fail at creating actual value." Vivian would have called it sweet, which was her word for anything that did not involve a luxury brand or a C-suite title. BrightPath was too important. It was the only part of my life that was wholly mine, and I would not have it tarnished by their casual disdain. Sabrina arrived 20 minutes later, armed with a gallon of dark roast and a grim expression. My tiny apartment was transformed into a command center. Logan Harrington's follow-up email, the one that arrived immediately after I responded to his text, laid out the terms. They were not just criteria, they were a gauntlet. He did not want a proposal. He wanted a ready-to-launch national business plan. "A sustainable model," Sabrina read, pacing my living room. "He does not just want to give us money, he wants to know how we stop needing it." "A 5-state expansion framework," I countered, highlighting the screen. "Look at the states he specified: Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming, Utah, and Arizona. He's testing us on rural access, low connectivity. He wants a full teacher training and certification module," Sabrina noted, her pen flying. And a new parent portal. He's not just funding our software, Delaney. He is funding an ecosystem. This was the test. It was not a grant application. It was a final interview for a job we did not know we were applying for. We divided the labor. Sabrina, a wizard with numbers, took the financials. She would build a 5-year budget so tight, so predictive, that it would answer every question before it was asked. My job was the narrative, the implementation, the story, but I knew better than to just write a story. I spent the next 2 hours not writing, but researching. I dug into the Harrington Philanthropy Group's public database of past winners. They were a diverse group, but a pattern emerged. They did not fund soup kitchens. They funded automated supply chains for food banks. They did not fund after-school programs. They funded data-driven platforms that measured educational outcomes. They did not fund warmth. They funded infrastructure. They were not interested in hope. They were interested in proof. They're tech investors, I told Sabrina, my eyes gritty. They are venture capitalists using a philanthropy tag. They want results, not intentions. The 2.1 is our entry point. Good, Sabrina said, not looking up from her spreadsheet. Because the burn rate for a 5-state expansion is going to make them choke, but the cost per student acquisition drops by 62% in year 3. That's our hook. By Wednesday, we were running on fumes. I had written a 12-page draft, detailing the impact, the methodology, the scalability. I read it over. It was professional. It was polite. It was modest. It was the proposal a teacher would write. It was asking for permission. I sent the executive summary to Logan Harrington. A gamble. I needed to know if I was on the right track. His reply came 9 minutes later. It was short and brutal. Ms. Brooke, this is insufficient. You are apologizing for your own data. Your program's results are not promising. They are proven. Stop using phrases like, we believe and we hope to. I do not have time for humility, and the students you serve do not either. Tell me what you have done, and tell me what you will do with $15 million. State the true size of the impact. I stared at the screen. He's arrogant, I murmured. Sabrina leaned over, read the email, and nodded. He's right. You are asking for the keys to the kingdom. Delaney, stop acting like you are asking for extra copy paper. Write it like you have already won. I deleted the entire introduction. I started again, this time with the data on the first line. The work was all-consuming. I forgot to eat. I drank coffee until my hands trembled. The outside world ceased to exist, until, of course, it forced its way in. On Thursday, the night of the engagement dinner, I was barred from. My phone lit up. It was Instagram. Vivian's story was at the top of my feed. I tapped it. The video was a slow pan of the private dining room at the Marlowe. Crystal glasses, towers of seafood, laughter I could not hear over the tagged, upbeat music. The camera zoomed in on Vivian's hand, her diamond ring catching the light, wrapped around a champagne flute. The caption, in elegant script, my perfect family, my perfect future, so incredibly blessed. My perfect family, the ones who had just erased me. The hypocrisy was so thick it was choking. I watched the video 3 times. The image of that ring, that room, that lie, burning into my brain. I felt a familiar, cold anger settle in my chest. I closed the app. I turned back to the proposal. Perfect, I muttered. I would show them perfect. I was deep drafting the teacher training module when the phone rang again. This time, it was not a text. It was a call. My father. Delaney. His voice was sharp. I am busy, Dad. I am calling to confirm you received my message. The dinner was a wonderful success. The Harringtons are a fine family. Now, I understand there is a large charity gala at the Archer Conservatory this Saturday. I trust you will not be making an appearance. The audacity of it took my breath away. He did not know what I was doing, but he knew the venue. He was warning me away from the building, afraid I might show up in my old hatchback and embarrass him in the valet line. I do not know what you are talking about, Dad. Do not be coy. It is a black tie event. You do not have a ticket. I do not want any confusion. Your sister is finally on the right path. Do not disrupt things. Do not show up anywhere downtown on Saturday night. Am I clear? He did not wait for an answer. The line clicked. What was that? Sabrina asked, rubbing her eyes under her glasses. My father, I said, my voice tight. Telling me not to embarrass the family by showing up at the gala I am now apparently keynoting. Good, Sabrina said. Use it. I did. I channeled every ounce of frustration, every year of being told I was not enough, into the proposal. It was no longer modest. It was a weapon. On Friday morning, with the 72-hour clock winding down, Sabrina found the landmine. She had been running a routine media check on BrightPath, something we did once a month. Delaney, she said, her voice quiet. You need to see this. She turned her laptop toward me. It was an anonymous blog, something called the Denver Education Watch. The post was new, published just yesterday. The title, BrightPath Initiative, Noble Cause or Clever Donation Scam. I read it. My blood went cold. It was a personal, vicious attack. It called our data statistically impossible, our methods vague, and suggested we were a pair of disgruntled teachers leveraging student data for personal gain. It was libel. Who wrote this? I whispered. No idea. It is anonymous. But look at the phrasing. Sabrina pointed to a line. It is all about optics and maintaining the appearance of helping while funneling funds. It is all perception-based language. It sounds like Vivian, I finished. It was her vocabulary. The passive-aggressive tone, the obsession with how things looked rather than what they were. She must have found out about BrightPath, seen it as a threat, another potential embarrassment from her lowly teacher sister, and decided to neutralize it, a preemptive strike to discredit me before I could somehow tarnish her new family. It is. It's a fundraising ploy, a donation scam, I said, the Vietnamese phrase from the outline popping into my head, though I spoke the English equivalent. A donation scam. This is not a coincidence, Sabrina said, her face grim. It drops 48 hours before the gala. She is trying to poison the well. She is feeding this to the rumor mill. I stared at the screen, at the lies. I could fight this. I could hire a lawyer. I could waste days, weeks, trying to unmask an anonymous blogger. Or I could finish the proposal. It does not matter, I said, closing the laptop. Delaney, it matters. This is sabotage. No, I stood up. It is a distraction. They do not have data. We do. I am focusing on the work. I looked at the whiteboard, at the map of Colorado, and the 4 surrounding states. I am focusing on the expansion into New Mexico and Wyoming. I am focusing on the offline modules for the reservations. That is the work. This is just noise. Sabrina studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, the noise. She turned back to her numbers. I hate your family. Me too, I said. We worked through the night. We built the model for the 5-state expansion. We finalized the budget for the teacher training. We designed the UI for the parent portal. We submitted the final 48-page proposal at 11:40 p.m., Friday night. I collapsed on the sofa, my brain completely hollowed out. At 11:43 p.m., my laptop chimed, a new email. From Logan Harrington, subject, final proposal, BrightPath Initiative. This is excellent. We will see you tomorrow. 1 p.m., my office. You will meet with me and Eleanor Hart. I gasped. Sabrina, he's bringing in Eleanor Hart. Sabrina's head snapped up. Eleanor Hart was the president of the Harrington Philanthropy Group. She was a legend, a titan. She did not attend preliminary pitch meetings. He is not, Sabrina whispered, her eyes wide. She never, oh my God, Delaney. It is not a pitch, I said, the realization landing with the weight of a physical blow. It is a final vetting. He is bringing us to the Queen. We need better clothes, Sabrina said. We need more coffee, I replied. The gauntlet was set. We had 72 hours. Now we had 19. The 72-hour sprint was a blur of caffeine, whiteboards, and the incessant clicking of keyboards. My apartment, once a quiet sanctuary, was now a high-stakes command center. Empty coffee mugs littered every surface. Sabrina's financial models covered the walls, a dense forest of projections and cost-benefit analyses. The final proposal had ballooned into a 48-page behemoth of data, methodology, and strategic planning. We were not just building a proposal, we were building a company. "I need something harder," I said, pacing on Friday morning. We had 19 hours left. "The 2.1 grade level jump is amazing, but it's an average. Logan wants specifics. He wants a golden spike, something undeniable." "What about Red Bluff?" Sabrina suggested, not looking up from her screen. "That high school near the state line, the one with the principal who sends us postcards." I grabbed the phone. Red Bluff High was one of our earliest pilots. A school so rural and underfunded, it had been using textbooks from the 1990s. I got the principal on his direct line. "Delaney, how are you?" His voice boomed. "Good. Mark, I'm on a tight deadline. I need a number. Your advanced placement program. What were your pass rates before BrightPath?" I heard him shuffle papers. "Oh, that's easy. We were at 31%. Embarrassing. Most kids just gave up." "And last semester?" I held my breath. 86%, he said with undisguised pride. "We ran out of space on the awards plaque in the main hall. Your platform didn't just teach them, Delaney, it convinced them they could learn." I hung up, my hands shaking. "We have it," I said to Sabrina. 31% to 86%. That's not just growth, that's a miracle. I embedded the data into the main impact section. It was the anchor. Meanwhile, Sabrina was finalizing the financials. "Here's the model," she said, spinning her laptop toward me. Year 1. We use the initial $3 million to scale to 45,000 students in the 5-state area. We prove the rural model. Year 5. We hit 500,000 students, and because our training module is digital and scalable, the cost per student acquisition drops by 38%. It's sustainable. It's not a donation. It's an investment that pays for itself in societal value. My contribution was the heart of the machine. I drafted the multi-tiered teacher training package. It was not a one-off seminar. It was continuous, digital, and crucially, available offline. We designed the Bright Box, a small, self-contained server preloaded with our entire curriculum for mountain schools with no reliable internet. It would sync with our main servers just once a month. But the part I was proudest of was a 2-page section I titled, "The Valuation of a Teacher." I wrote that the current model of educational reform was broken. It relied on hiring billion-dollar consulting firms to tell teachers what they already knew. Our model did the opposite. It treated teachers as the core asset, not the problem. We would not hire consultants. We would pay mentor teachers to lead their own training. We were placing the investment in the human capital already in the classrooms. I sent a draft of that section to Logan, a bold, last-minute move. His reply came back almost immediately. "Good, this is the core of it, but your language is regional. You are still thinking about Colorado and Wyoming. I want to see the framework for a national plan. Make it a national plan, not just a regional one." "He wants more," I said to Sabrina, my eyes burning. "Then we give him more," she replied. For the next 6 hours, we tore down the expansion plan and rebuilt it, creating a Phase 2 for national implementation, outlining how we would adapt the model for urban districts in New York and rural parishes in Louisiana. It was audacious. It was terrifying. It was exactly what he wanted. At 10 p.m., we were formatting the final PDF. Every chart was perfect. Every citation triple-checked. We were delirious with exhaustion, but the document was brilliant. And then, at 10:03 p.m., Sabrina's laptop chimed. "What is it?" I asked, not looking up from aligning a text box. It's an email," she said, her voice strange. "From Logan Harrington." "He found a typo?" "No, He forwarded us an email he received, an anonymous email. She turned the screen. My stomach dropped. The subject line was, "Confidential tip, Bright Path bid, Delaney Brooke." The email was short and poisonous. It was addressed to the Harrington Philanthropy Group's compliance department. It claimed to be from a concerned former colleague. It alleged that I, Delaney Brooke, had not left my previous teaching post voluntarily. It claimed I had been quietly dismissed for plagiarism, for stealing the lesson plans of a senior colleague and passing them off as my own. It was a lie, a clean, vicious, perfectly timed lie, designed to detonate my credibility hours before the final decision. It painted me as a fraud, the one thing our data-driven proposal could not survive. This was not Vivian's work. This was not a passive-aggressive blog post about optics. This was a professional assassination. This was my father. He could not stand that I had defied him, that I was at the gala. He must have called in a favor, had someone dig for dirt, and when they found none, they invented it. "He's trying to disqualify us," Sabrina whispered, her face pale. "He's telling them the entire foundation of Bright Path is stolen." I looked at the forwarded email, then at Logan's simple one-line addition. "Thought you should see this. Please advise." He was not accusing, he was testing. He was giving us one last chance to respond. I did not panic. The anger was so cold and so pure. It was clarifying. I had spent my entire life being underestimated and undermined by my father. He thought I was a failed academic. He thought I was a glorified babysitter. He did not realize I was also a meticulous, over-prepared, professional educator. "Sabrina," I said, my voice calm, "open my professional drive. Folder, certifications." She did. "Pull the letter of good standing from the Denver Public School Superintendent, dated last month. Pull the scans of my 2 state education awards for innovation in curriculum design. Pull my final, spotless evaluation from my last post." Sabrina's eyes lit up. "Oh, this is good." "Now, pull the independent audits folder. Get the full verification report from the Colorado Education Institute, and add the performance review from the Red Bluff School District." We did not write a panicked, defensive reply. We created Appendix C, third-party verification and professional standing. We embedded every document, every award, every signature, every glowing unofficial evaluation. We added a simple cover line. Bright Path is built on a foundation of proven data and professional integrity, as independently verified by the following. We attached the new 49-page file. We sent it to Logan Harrington at exactly 11:56 p.m. 23:56 p.m., 4 minutes to spare. We said nothing else. We let the documents speak for us. The silence in the apartment was deafening. There was nothing left to do. We had put every minute of 3 years of work and every ounce of our integrity on the line. At 11:58 p.m., 2 minutes later, the reply came. From Logan Harrington. "Excellent. Main stage, 2:20 p.m. Be ready." I closed the laptop. My hands were perfectly steady. I looked at Sabrina, who looked like she was about to cry from sheer exhaustion. "If we fail tomorrow," I said, the words tasting strange, "if we go up there and they say no, I'm still a teacher. I still go to work on Monday. I still have my kids." Sabrina smiled, a real tired smile. "And if we succeed, Delaney, all those kids get a whole new road." She stood up and stretched. "Either way, we win." The Archer Conservatory was not a building. It was a monument to old money. The air itself smelled different, a mixture of floor wax, hothouse flowers, and the faint, crisp scent of old-world wealth. The Harrington Philanthropy Group was the main benefactor, and they had spared no expense. Crystal chandeliers, thick-cut and dripping light, hung from the vaulted ceiling of the grand hall. A string quartet played somewhere, the music a polite murmur beneath the din of 500 voices. Sabrina and I had arrived via a rideshare, and I had insisted on being dropped off a block away. I was wearing the only suit I owned, a sharp, navy blue tailored outfit I had bought on clearance 2 years ago for a parent-teacher conference. It was my armor, Sabrina, practical as ever, wore a dark dress and sensible heels, her laptop bag slung over her shoulder like she was walking into a war room. We checked in at the press area, not the guest table. The woman's eyes flickered over us, a quick, dismissive appraisal. Names? Delaney Brooke and Sabrina Cole. We're with the Bright Path Initiative. Her fingers tapped the keyboard. Her expression changed, shifting from dismissal to hurried efficiency. Oh, Ms. Brooke, of course, we have you listed as the main presenter. Here are your credentials. She handed me a lanyard. The laminated card read, in bold letters, Presenter. I slipped it over my head. It felt heavier than a simple piece of plastic. This way to the main hall, the woman said, her tone now respectful. Your presentation is scheduled for 2:20 p.m. Mr. Harrington's assistant will find you for the pre-meet. We walked through the arched entryway. The room was a sea of black ties and couture gowns. Men and women with familiar, televised faces laughed and networked, champagne flutes in hand. And then I saw them. They were impossible to miss. Table number 1, the VIP table, set so close to the stage that the occupants were practically part of the program. My father, Robert Brooke, looked magnificent in his tuxedo, his silver hair catching the light. He was leaning back in his chair, a glass of dark liquor in his hand, commanding the attention of the man next to him. My mother sat beside him, elegant and rigid, a statue in emerald green, smiling at something my father said. And Vivian, she was glowing, wearing a dress the color of champagne, her hand always moving, touching her hair, adjusting her necklace, flashing the diamond that had bought her entry into this world. Ethan Harrington sat beside her, looking every bit the handsome, wealthy heir. They were the perfect family, the one from her Instagram story, the one I had been excluded from, the stain they had successfully scrubbed. I felt Sabrina's hand on my arm. Delaney, breathe. They're just people. They're not, I whispered, the cold knot forming in my stomach. My father looked up. He was scanning the room, the same way he would scan a boardroom, assessing assets. His eyes passed over me, lingered, and then snapped back. I watched the sequence of emotions play across his face, a micro-expression of pure, unadulterated shock. Then, it hardened into something I knew well, rage. He put his drink down. He excused himself from the table, his movements sharp. My mother and Vivian watched him, their smiles freezing. He was coming straight for me. He cut through the crowd, not pushing, but using an invisible aura of authority that made people step out of his way. He stopped 3 feet from me. He did not yell. He did not have to. His voice was a low, vibrating hiss that was more terrifying than any shout. "What in God's name?" he said. "Do you think you are doing here?" I did not answer. I could feel the blood draining from my face. I made my instructions perfectly clear. You are not welcome. This is a private event. He took a step closer, close enough for me to smell the expensive scotch on his breath. You are embarrassing your sister. I was invited, Dad. My voice was a whisper. Do not lie to me. His eyes were hard. You snuck in. You have always been this way, always needing to be the center of attention, always defiant. He grabbed my arm. His grip was tight, his fingers digging into the fabric of my suit. We are leaving. You will walk out of here quietly, and you will not make a scene. Let go of me. Robert? A voice said. We turned. My mother and Vivian had approached. My mother looked pale, her hands clasped. Vivian just looked annoyed. Dad, what is going on? People are staring. Our uninvited guest was just leaving, Robert said. He turned and signaled to a man in a dark suit with an earpiece. Security, this woman is trespassing. She is not a guest. I want her removed from the building. The security guard approached, followed by the event coordinator with the tablet, the same one who had checked us in. The group around us had gone quiet. The people from the VIP table were watching. Sir, is there a problem? the coordinator asked. Yes, my father boomed, his voice now shifting to public outrage. This woman has crashed this event. She is mentally unstable. She has a history of this. Please, for her own sake, escort her out. My heart hammered. He was painting me as unhinged, in front of everyone. Sir, the coordinator said, her voice firm. What is your name? Robert Brooke. That is my table, he pointed. And her name? It doesn't matter. She's a nobody. My name, I said, my voice shaking but loud, is Delaney Brooke. I held up the lanyard, my hand trembling so hard the plastic card rattled. I am the presenter. The coordinator's face cleared in recognition. She looked back at my father, her professional smile locked in place, but her eyes were ice. Mr. Brooke, I am afraid you are mistaken. Ms. Brooke is not trespassing. She touched her earpiece. She is our keynote speaker. The silence was absolute. My father's hand dropped from my arm. His face went blank, the mask of rage replaced by a terrifying, cold confusion. Vivian's jaw literally dropped. My mother put a hand to her throat. From the VIP table, I saw Ethan Harrington lean forward, his expression unreadable. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I did not need to look. I knew it was Vivian. I pulled it out. The text, sent from 20 feet away, glowed on the screen. What are you doing? This is my night. This is my family. Don't you dare ruin this. I have my reasons. Stand down. Stand down. Robert, a new voice cut through the tension. Logan Harrington emerged from the hallway leading backstage. He was tall, dressed in an immaculate tuxedo, and moved with a predatory grace. He looked nothing like his brother. Where Ethan was soft, Logan was sharp. He nodded politely to my family, his eyes lingering on my father's shell-shocked expression. Good to see you enjoying the evening, Vivian, Mrs. Brooke. His greeting was a swift, clean dismissal. He turned to me, and the entire atmosphere shifted. He was in charge. Ms. Brooke, he said, his voice crisp. You are cutting it close. Eleanor is waiting. He put a hand on my back, not touching, but steering. Guiding me and Sabrina away from the tableau of my frozen family, he was a human shield, projecting an aura of she is with me that no one in that room dared to question. We moved toward the backstage door. We were safe. Until we were not. Delaney! My father's voice, no longer public, but a low, dangerous snarl. He had followed us into the private corridor. Logan stopped, and I stopped with him. He turned slightly, an eyebrow raised, as if to say, handle this. My father strode up to me, his face crimson. He grabbed my arm again, harder this time, and pulled me aside, away from Logan's immediate protection. I do not know what kind of game you are playing, he hissed, his face inches from mine. I do not know how you tricked these people into letting you speak, but you will not do it. Let go of my arm. You will go to that podium. You will say you are ill, and you will walk off. If you go up on that stage, if you say one word that embarrasses this family, I swear to God, Delaney, I will end you. I will call your school board. I will call your principal. I will tell them you are unstable, that you are a liability. I will remind them what happens when they employ insubordinate, disrespectful people. You will be finished by Monday. This was it, the nuclear option, the threat he had held over me my entire life, the destruction of the one thing I loved. I looked him in the eye, the fear I had lived with for 31 years, the fear of his disapproval, his rage, his power, was suddenly gone. It had been burned out, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. I pulled my arm free, and this time, my voice was not shaking. I am not here to talk about the family. Dad, I am here to talk about the students. I turned my back on him. His stunned silence followed me as I walked toward Logan, who was watching the entire exchange with a chillingly neutral expression. This way, Logan said. He led us into the green room. It was stark, professional, bottles of water, a coffee service, a large monitor showing the current speaker on stage. A woman was sitting in a chair, reading a folder. She looked up as we entered. She was perhaps 60, with steel gray hair and the most intelligent eyes I had ever seen. This was Eleanor Hart, the president of the Harrington Philanthropy Group. She stood. She did not smile. "Ms. Brooke, Ms. Cole, I am Eleanor Hart." "It's an honor to meet you," Sabrina murmured. "I have read your proposal 3 times," Eleanor said, tapping the folder. "It is brilliant. It is the most impressive data-driven model I have seen in a decade. It is also aggressive, cold, and reads like a private equity prospectus." She looked me up and down, not at my suit, but at me. "Logan tells me you are a teacher," she said. "I want that voice on stage today. Forget the boardroom pitch. Forget the scalability indexes and the 5-year projections. I want you to be the teacher. Make those people out there, the ones in the expensive dresses, understand why this matters. They need to understand the children before they understand the data. Can you do that?" This was the final test, not the numbers, the heart. "Yes, ma'am," I said. "It is the only voice I have." "Good," she nodded, satisfied. "You have 20 minutes." She and Logan turned to leave. "We will be back to walk you to the stage in 5. They left. Sabrina and I were alone, the silence deafening. "She wants the teacher," Sabrina said, a small, nervous smile playing on her lips. "You can do that." "I can do that," I said. The door to the green room cracked open. It was not Eleanor, it was Vivian. She slipped inside, her champagne-colored dress looking garish and flimsy under the fluorescent lights. Her eyes were wide with panic, her makeup smudged. "Delaney, thank God," she whispered, rushing toward me. "You have to pull out. You cannot go on that stage." "What are you doing here, Vivian?" "I am saving you. You have to tell them you are sick, a family emergency, anything." "Why? Because Dad is threatening me? I already know. It will not work." "No," she insisted, grabbing my hands. Her palms were clammy. "It is not about Dad. It is about the proposal. It is wrong." I stared at her. "What?" "The numbers," she said, her voice dropping. I saw some numbers. They are not accurate. You are going to go up there, and you are going to embarrass yourself. These people, Eleanor Hart, Logan, they will know you lied. You are overstating your impact. It is not true." It was a clumsy, desperate attempt at sabotage. "My numbers are accurate, Vivian. They have been independently audited." "They are not. Please, Del, if you do this, you will ruin everything, not just for me, for you. This is not your world. You do not understand the stakes. Please, just walk away, for your own good." She was begging, but she was not begging for me. She was terrified of something. My phone buzzed. A new text. It was from Sabrina, who had stepped into the adjoining hallway to use the restroom. I glanced down. I had a thought. I ran a reverse trace on the IP address for that anonymous Denver Education Watch blog, the one that called us a donation scam. My blood went cold. It's not a professional job. It's sloppy. The IP address isn't just a proxy. It's registered to the public Wi-Fi in the lobby of Vivian's apartment building, the one Ethan pays for. She did this. I looked up from the phone. I looked at my sister, my beautiful, perfect sister, who was currently clutching my hands and pleading for me to stand down. The blog post, the inaccurate numbers, the donation scam. I have my reasons. She had not just been passive. She had been an active participant in the sabotage. She was trying to poison the well from the start, terrified that her teacher sister, her family's shame, would somehow taint her perfect new life. I pulled my hands away from hers. "Get out, Vivian," I said. My voice was quiet. "Delaney, please, you do not understand." "Get out." She flinched as if I had slapped her. The desperation in her eyes turned to a familiar, petulant anger. She turned and fled the room. The door closed. I stood alone in the silence. A stagehand in a black polo shirt leaned his head in. "Ms. Brooke, we are live in 2 minutes." I looked at my hands. I was wearing a simple silver bracelet my mother had given me when I graduated from college. A small, meaningless token. I unclasped it. I set it down on the table next to the bottle of water. I did not need it. I took a deep breath. I felt the adrenaline, hot and sharp. I was not afraid. I was ready. I walked out of the green room, toward the lights. I walked onto the stage. The heat of the follow spot was blinding, a perfect circle of white light that turned the 500 people in the audience into a faceless, glittering darkness. I could smell the dust from the stage curtains. I walked to the podium, set my notes down, and did not look at them. I knew, without looking, where table 1 was. I could feel the gravity of their gaze, my father's fury, Vivian's panic, my mother's terrified neutrality. I looked just past them, into the dark. I clicked the remote. The screen behind me lit up. It was not a graph. It was a photograph of a classroom at Pinecrest, slightly blurry, taken on my phone. Just kids at desks. "This," I began, my voice amplified by the microphone, clear and steady, "is Maria. She is 13 years old, and she is in my 7th grade English class. When Maria came to me, she had been in the system for 7 years, and she could not read. Not really. She was an expert at hiding. She knew how to look at the page, how to guess from pictures, how to be quiet. The system had labeled her slow. The system had passed her from grade to grade, a failure of bureaucracy and low expectations. I let the silence hang. I was a teacher. I knew how to use silence. The system was wrong. Maria was not slow. She was brilliant, but she had dyslexia that had never been diagnosed. It was not that she could not learn. It was that we, as a system, had failed to teach her the way she needed to be taught. Maria's story is why we are here. I clicked again. The blurry photo was replaced by a hard, clean line graph. Maria is one story. The data shows us there are thousands. This is the diagnostic progress from a school district in southern Colorado. The blue line is the district average, before BrightPath. The green line is the first-year cohort using BrightPath. This is not a guess. This is a 2.1 grade-level increase in reading comprehension in 9 months. I moved fast, slide after slide. Data, charts, before and after metrics. We are not afraid of our data. We are not afraid to be wrong. We show our methodology. We publish our margin of error, and we are completely transparent because our students do not have time for vanity metrics. Look at Red Bluff High, a rural school. Their advanced placement pass rate was 31%. In 1 year with our platform, it is 86%. I paused, looking out, imagining the investors, the board members. I am sure some of you are thinking that this is just another piece of software, another app that promises to fix education. You are thinking this is technology designed to replace teachers. I leaned forward, gripping the sides of the podium. This was for Eleanor. You are wrong. BrightPath is not a replacement for a teacher. It is a tool. It is an X-ray for their classroom, allowing them to see exactly where a student is struggling and why. It is an adaptive platform that gives Maria the specific phonetic help she needs, while giving the student next to her the advanced grammar she is ready for. We are not replacing educators. We are empowering them. We are centering them. Our model invests in training teachers to be mentors, not in hiring expensive outside consultants. Now the pivot. This was for Logan. Let me be perfectly clear about what we are asking for today. This is not charity. I heard a pin drop silence. I could feel the shift in the room. Charity is giving a man a fish. This is not that. This is an investment in the infrastructure to build a fleet of fishing boats. It is an investment in a measurable, scalable, social return. We are here to prove that you can do good and do it well. Click the federal expansion map. With this $15 million grant, this is our 5-year plan. Year 1, the 5-state expansion, reaching 45,000 new students in high-need rural areas. Year 5, we reach 500,000 students. Our financial model proves that as we scale, our cost per student acquisition drops by 38%. This model is built to be sustainable. Click a picture of a small black server box. This is our equity framework. We call it the Bright Box. For mountain communities and rural districts with no reliable internet, this box contains our entire offline curriculum. It syncs with our main servers just once a month, because a student's access to education should not depend on their zip code's Wi-Fi strength. I took a breath. I was almost there. And finally, our commitment. If we are awarded this grant, my co-founder and I have stipulated one non-negotiable term. We will not take executive bonuses. We will not take inflated salaries. We will continue to take the salary of a senior public school teacher. 100% of this funding goes where it belongs, to the students we serve, and to the frontline teachers we train. I looked out at the darkness. Maria learned to read. It took her 7 years to find the right help. We do not have 7 years. The time is now. Thank you. I stopped. The room was absolutely, unnervingly silent. Not a cough, not a shifting chair. 20 full minutes of stillness. Then, the applause started. It was not polite. It was real. It rolled over me. A physical wave of sound. The lights in the hall came up for the Q&A. My heart was pounding. I could see them all now. I found table 1. My father looked pale, his glass untouched. Vivian was staring at her plate, her face white. Eleanor Hart, in the front row, nodded once. We have time for a few questions. Logan's voice boomed from the side of the stage. A hand shot up, a man in an expensive suit, third row, an investor. Ms. Brooke, a compelling presentation, but your entire 5-year plan seems to be 100% dependent on this single grant. That is an enormous financial risk. What happens in 5 years when the Harrington money runs out? I smiled. This was Sabrina's work. That is an excellent question. We are not building a dependency. We are using this grant as seed capital, our sustainability model, which you can see in Appendix B of the proposal, is diversified. Phase 2 involves 3 revenue streams: district-level service contracts for our software, local business sponsorships for our offline Brightbox program, and a cross-subsidy fee-for-service model for wealthier private schools that allows us to fund our public programs. We are not building a long-term charity. We are building a self-sustaining future. The man nodded, satisfied. Thank you. Another hand. A woman from a local foundation. I answered her question about teacher training. And then, a different hand went up. It was Ethan Harrington. He did not wait to be called on. He stood up. The room turned to look at him. The groom, Vivian's fiancé. He looked flustered, confused, but also angry. Ethan, Logan said, his voice tight. A question for Ms. Brooke, Ethan said, his voice carrying. He was looking right at me. You keep using the word we. You say you are the co-founder, but I have been made aware of some discrepancies. There is a blog, an education watchdog, that suggests you are not the co-founder at all. It suggests you borrowed, or rather stole, this initiative from another colleague. The room went dead silent. This was it, the blog post. Vivian's sabotage, now being wielded by her fiancé. My father was leaning forward, a predatory glint in his eye. Vivian was sinking into her chair, her hand over her mouth. She had created this monster, and now it was turning on her. I did not flinch. I did not look at my family. I looked directly at Ethan Harrington. Thank you for that question, I said, my voice as calm as a frozen lake. It speaks to the importance of verification, integrity, and giving credit where it is due. I clicked the remote. The screen, which had been on the Q&A slide, changed. It was a new slide. It was simple. It showed a scanned copy of our original LLC incorporation papers. 2 names, side by side. My name is Delaney Brooke, and I am the co-founder of BrightPath, I said. But you are right. I did not do this alone. This initiative would be impossible without the work, the brilliance, and the loyalty of my partner. I turned, scanning the side of the room near the tech tables, where I knew she was standing. The other name on those papers is Sabrina Cole. She is a mathematics educator, a financial modeling genius, and the true architect of the sustainable budget I presented today. She is our chief operating officer. I found her in the crowd. "Sabrina," I called out, my voice ringing with a strength I did not know I had. "Would you please stand up?" Sabrina, her face a mask of terror and pride, stood. And the entire room, all 500 people, turned to look at her. They broke into applause. Not polite applause. It was a wave of genuine, thunderous support. They were not just clapping for her. They were clapping for us. I watched Ethan Harrington, his face red, sit down, defeated. I turned back to the crowd, the applause washing over me. "Any other questions?" I asked. The applause for Sabrina was a wave, and as it receded, a new, sharper tension filled the hall. The question Ethan had asked, the accusation, still hung in the air, a drop of poison in the water. He was still standing, looking embarrassed but defiant, a man who had thrown a grenade and was just realizing it was live. My family at table 1 was a frozen, silent scream. My father was rigid, his eyes boring into me, willing me to break. Vivian was see-through pale, her hand still over her mouth. I had answered the question. I had proven my case, but the dirt was still on the floor. "If there are no further questions about the platform," I began, my voice steady. But before I could finish, Logan Harrington stepped away from the side wing and onto the main stage. He did not go to the podium. He walked to the slender microphone at center stage, the one reserved for the main announcements. He moved with a cold, precise energy. He was no longer just the host. He was the COO of a multi-billion-dollar fund. "Thank you, Ms. Brooke," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. The entire room was his. "You have answered the who and the what, but the question Mr. Harrington raised, it deserves a final clarification." I saw Ethan flinch at the formal use of his name. This was not a brother. This was a boss. "The Harrington Philanthropy Group," Logan continued, addressing the entire audience, "takes due diligence with extreme seriousness. We are not just investing money. We are investing our name. When we receive anonymous tips, we vet them." He looked directly at Ethan, then at table 1. "We were, in fact, made aware of the anonymous blog post Mr. Harrington referenced, the one that called this proven, audited program a scam and a fraud. Such an accusation, timed to detonate 48 hours before this gala, is a direct attempt to manipulate our selection process, and we treat manipulation very, very seriously." He nodded to the tech booth. "As this was a matter of potential financial fraud, our legal team filed an emergency subpoena for the IP records of the blog's origin." The slide of my incorporation papers vanished. It was replaced by a map of downtown Denver. A single, pulsing red dot appeared over a luxury apartment complex. "The blog post in question," Logan said, his voice devoid of all emotion, "was not published by a concerned education watchdog. It was published repeatedly over the last 48 hours from the public Wi-Fi network in the lobby of this building." He did not have to name it. I saw Vivian's hand fly to her throat. I saw Ethan's head snap toward her, his confusion turning into a sick, dawning comprehension. A collective gasp went through the room. It was not a whisper. It was a single, audible intake of 500 breaths. People were turning in their seats, their faces, moments ago polite and philanthropic, now hungry and sharp. They were all looking at table 1. They were looking at my sister. "That is a lie!" Vivian shot to her feet. Her chair scraped back, the sound echoing horribly in the high-tech silence. Her voice was a shriek, thin and cracking. "That is not true. I do not know what that is. It is a misunderstanding." She looked around, her eyes wild, searching for an ally. She found none. I might have written. A friend asked me to help write a post. As a favor. I did not know what it was about. I was hired to write it as a freelancer. It was a mistake. She was unraveling, the lies piling up, contradicting each other, each word digging her deeper. My father stood up, his face a mask of purple rage. That is enough. He, too, walked toward the stage, as if he could physically stop this. "Eleanor," he called out, not to Logan, but to the Queen. "This is unprofessional. This is a private family matter. My daughter she is overwrought." Eleanor Hart, who had been watching from the front row, did not move. She did not even turn to look at Robert. She simply lifted the wireless microphone from her table and pressed the button. "This is not," she said, her voice like Arctic ice, "a family matter." Her voice, amplified, cut through my father's shouting. Vivian froze, her mouth open. "This is a business matter. Mr. Brooke, this was a direct, malicious, and fraudulent attempt to interfere with a $15 million grant process. It was an attempt to defame a finalist, to defraud this fund, and to slander a program that is saving thousands of children. We do not tolerate it. The Harrington Philanthropy Group operates on a single principle: ethical integrity. It is clear that standard has not been met." She looked, for one fraction of a second, at Vivian. It was not a look of anger. It was a look of dismissal, a queen dismissing a fly. My father, seeing he had lost control, tried one last time. "This is a disgrace. You are airing family laundry. I demand—" He stopped. His voice was gone. The tech team, presumably on a signal from Logan, had cut the microphone at table 1. I watched him tap the live mic in front of him, his face contorting, but no sound came out. He was silenced, officially, technically, and publicly muted. Logan Harrington waited a beat, letting the image of my father's powerless rage burn into the memory of every person in that room. Then he spoke. "We evaluate our projects on data," Logan said, his voice calm, concluding the execution. "Not on bloodlines." He turned and nodded, almost imperceptibly, to me. "Your stage." I watched him walk off. I looked at my family. My father, defeated, was returning to his chair. My mother looked like she had turned to stone, and Vivian, she was crying, a gasping, ugly cry, as Ethan Harrington stood up and moved his chair 1 foot away from hers. The entire social world they had built, the perfect family, had been detonated in less than 3 minutes. I felt nothing. No, that was not true. I felt a cold, quiet relief. The anchor was cut. I was not tied to them anymore. I turned my back on them. I turned back to the audience. They were all looking at me, their expressions a mixture of pity, awe, and morbid curiosity. I clicked the remote. The map of Denver vanished. The screen was filled with the faces of the graduating class from Red Bluff High, the ones who had passed their AP exams. They were grinning, holding up their certificates. I did not raise my voice. I did not reference the drama. I remembered Eleanor's words. "Be the teacher." "These," I said, my voice soft but carrying, "are the students. This is the data. This is the work." I let the image speak for itself. In the front rows, I saw the press. The reporter from the Denver Ledger was not just writing. He was scribbling, his pen flying, his head down. The photographers, who had been polite, were now like sharks. The flashes were incessant, strobing, capturing my father's silent rage, Vivian's tears, and Ethan's horrified disgust. They were capturing the entire collapse. I did not care. I had a closing line. I took a breath and spoke the simplest truth I had. "I am a teacher. I am just making the classroom bigger." I set the remote down on the podium. The silence lasted for 3 heartbeats. Then, the applause began. It was not like the first round. It was not for the data. It was not polite. It started in the back, with a group of people I recognized as the principals and superintendents from the rural districts. It was a standing ovation. It was loud. It was sustained. And it was for me. People were on their feet, the investors, the other philanthropists, Even Eleanor Hart was standing, her expression unreadable, but she was clapping. The noise was a roar. Before the applause even died down, a group of 3 people, the school principals, broke protocol. They bypassed the aisles and rushed the stage, coming straight toward me, their hands outstretched. "Ms. Brooke, I am from the San Luis Valley District. When can we talk? We need this yesterday." The gala had broken. The schedule was in tatters. Then, Eleanor Hart's voice cut through the noise, amplified and absolute. "Thank you, Ms. Brooke. Thank you, everyone." The room quieted. "We will now be taking a 15-minute intermission. Please, enjoy the refreshments in the grand hall." She paused, and the air crackled. "In the meantime," she said, "I will be meeting immediately in the green room with my board, Mr. Harrington, Ms. Brooke, and Ms. Cole." She looked directly at me, a sharp, appraising glance. The trial was over, the verdict was in. The green room, which had felt sparse and functional before, now felt like an airlock. The door clicked shut, sealing us off from the roaring applause and the stunned chaos of the main hall. The sound was instantly muffled, distant, replaced by the quiet hum of the air conditioning. It was just me, Sabrina, Logan Harrington, Eleanor Hart, and 2 other board members, a man and a woman with equally impassive, intelligent faces. No one sat down. The energy in the room was electric, a 1,000,000-volt current running beneath a surface of absolute calm. Sabrina and I stood side by side, a united front. I could feel her trembling slightly, but her face was set. Logan was the first to speak. He looked not at Eleanor, but at me. His expression was no longer neutral. It was sharp, analytical, and held a glint of something I could not name. "Ms. Brooke," he said, his voice low, "I need to clarify something. My team did not find your proposal by accident." I waited. "I have been tracking the Bright Path initiative for just over a year. Your name first crossed my desk when a data analyst flagged your program's metrics from the Red Bluff district. They seemed anomalous, too good to be true." "So you investigated us," I said. It was not a question. "Exhaustively," he replied. "We watched you struggle with server costs. We saw your first failed grant application for the state fund, and then we saw the report you filed for that grant." He paused, and this time, he looked at Eleanor. "In your quarterly report, you had a section labeled Failures in Implementation. You detailed, with complete honesty, a pilot program in a middle school that failed. You explained why it failed. Your software was not compatible with their outdated hardware, and you had not anticipated the lack of teacher buy-in. You did not hide it. You did not bury the data. You reported it." He looked back at me. "That, Ms. Brooke, is what impressed me most. Not your 86% pass rate. Your honesty about your failures. I knew you were not a fraud. You were a scientist." I felt Sabrina let out a breath she had been holding for a year. "I brought your file to Eleanor," Logan continued. "When my brother's engagement was announced and your name appeared on the family list, I knew it was time. I sent the report to the board last week. The text message, the 72-hour deadline. That was a test. It was the final test. To see if you were just a teacher, or if you were a leader. You passed." My mind was reeling. This was not a competition. It had been an audition, and the final performance was the one on stage just now. Eleanor Hart stepped forward, taking control. The room refocused on her. "Your presentation was excellent," she said, her voice crisp. "You did what I asked. You gave them the teacher. Now, I need to speak to the executive." She looked me in the eye. "This grant, if awarded, is not a gift. It is a contract. It requires a full-time C-suite level commitment. Bright Path will no longer be your passion project. It will be a national entity. We will require you to lead it. That means you will not, I assume, have time to change diapers for teenagers, as your father so eloquently put it." The fact she had heard, or been told, that detail sent a chill down my spine. "The question is, Ms. Brooke, Are you willing to accept that? Are you willing to leave the classroom to run this organization? This was the crossroads, the choice between the life I loved and the impact I had always dreamed of. I did not hesitate. No. Eleanor's eyebrows shot up. The other board members stiffened. Logan's expression remained neutral, but I saw a flicker of something. Disappointment? No, I will not leave the classroom, I clarified, my voice firm. I will not run this organization from a 38th floor office, disconnected from the very people I'm supposed to be serving. I will not become a consultant who has not seen the inside of a school in 20 years. If I am to lead this, I will do it as a teacher. That is not practical, one of the board members said, the first time he had spoken. It is non-negotiable, I countered. I will reduce my course load. I will teach 2 classes every semester, at a public school, unpaid if necessary, but I must keep my hands on the work. I have to know what is broken. I have to see the students. My leadership must be grounded in reality, not in boardrooms, if that is a deal breaker. I understand, but that is the only way I will do this. Eleanor Hart stared at me for a long, heavy moment. A slow smile touched the corners of her mouth. Good, she said. That was the correct answer. She turned to Sabrina. Ms. Cole, your governance framework? Sabrina snapped into focus. Yes, we have structured a 2-entity system. BrightPath remains the nonprofit, the lab, where all innovation and curriculum is developed, the Harrington Learning Labs, as we have provisionally titled it, would be the scalable, funded entity responsible for national deployment. The grant funds the deployment, not the research. This creates a firewall. The funds board has oversight on the spending and the metrics, but the BrightPath board, made of educators, retains total control over the curriculum. It prevents conflicts of interest and protects the academic integrity. No one can ever force us to change our methods to meet a financial target. It was brilliant. It was clean. It protected us. The board members were nodding. They were speaking Sabrina's language now. Structure, governance, firewalls. My phone buzzed in my suit pocket, a sharp, insistent vibration. I ignored it. Sabrina was deep in the details of the financial controls when it buzzed again, and again. Eleanor's eyes flicked to my pocket. Is that an emergency, Ms. Brooke? I doubt it, I said. But my hand, betraying me, slipped into my pocket. I pulled out the phone. The screen was lit up with 3 texts from my mother. He's in the lobby. He's shouting. He's trying to get past security. He's saying he's a sponsor. Delaney, are you okay? He's losing control. I think he's been drinking. My father, making a scene, humiliating himself and me one last time. I stared at the words, "Are you okay?" The first time she had asked me that in years, I felt a sharp, sudden pang of, not pity, exhaustion. I pressed the power button. The screen went black. I put the phone face down on the table. No, I said, looking directly at Eleanor. It's not an emergency. It's just noise. Please, Sabrina, continue. Sabrina, who had seen the name on the screen, gave me a look of profound, solid respect. She continued with the budget. We were 5 minutes into the governance discussion when there was a knock. Not a polite tap, but a sharp, urgent rapping. Logan looked at the door, annoyed. Security knows we are not to be disturbed. The knock came again, followed by a voice. Logan, Eleanor, it is Ethan. I need 1 minute. It is relevant. Logan and Eleanor shared a look. Logan nodded, and a security guard I had not even noticed was in the room opened the door. Ethan Harrington slipped in. He was a mess. His bow tie was undone. His face was pale and sweaty. He was holding a plain manila envelope. He looked at me, his face a ruin of shame and confusion, then quickly looked away. I apologize, he said, his voice strained. This is not a family matter. This pertains to the fund. He was clearly parroting Eleanor's words from the stage. What is it, Ethan? Logan asked, his voice flat. Ethan walked forward and placed the envelope on the table. As you know, my engagement, Vivian, I have had a private investigator looking into some discrepancies for the past month. I was concerned about things, finances. I saw Vivian's terrified face in my mind, her desperate plea for me to stand down. She has debts, Ethan said, his voice cracking. Significant ones, gambling debts, over $200,000 in high interest, unsecured loans. She was being threatened. I found this out this morning. He slid the envelope toward Logan. This is the report, but that is not why I am here. When I reviewed her financials, I saw a recent payment, $10,000, received 3 days ago from an LLC I did not recognize. He looked at me. I did not understand, but then, on the stage, the blog, the IP address. My God. Get to the point, Ethan, Eleanor said, her voice sharp. The LLC, Ethan said. The one that paid her. It is a shell corporation. It is registered to a holding company owned by Robert Brooke. The room went utterly still. It was not just Vivian. It was my father. He had paid my sister to write the blog post, to plant the seeds of the donation scam. The plagiarism accusation was his. The blog was hers. It was a coordinated attack. He had used her, and she had let herself be used, all to stop me. He paid her to sabotage me, I said, the words coming out cold and dead. Ethan nodded, unable to meet my eyes. I believe she was desperate for the money to pay off the loans. And your father? He used that. I am so sorry. As a matter of fund integrity, I had to disclose this. Logan picked up the envelope. He did not open it. He simply held it. Thank you, Ethan. Your commitment to the fund's principles is noted. You may go. He was dismissing his brother like an intern. Logan, Ethan started. We are concluding a meeting, Logan said. Ethan, a man who had never been dismissed in his life, looked around the room, found no support, and walked out. The door clicked shut. A heavy, sick silence filled the room. Eleanor Hart was the first to move. She picked up my phone from the table, turned it over, and pushed it back toward me. A family of vipers, she said, not unkindly. It is a miracle you survived. She then turned back to the board. The family drama is irrelevant. This changes nothing. The decision stands on 2 criteria, and 2 criteria only: the impact of the model and the scalability of the leadership. She looked at me. Ms. Brooke, we are about to vote. Do you have one final thing you would like to say to this board? I looked at Sabrina, who nodded. I looked at Logan, who was watching me with that same intense, unreadable expression. I looked at Eleanor, a woman who held my entire future in her hands. I stood up straight. I was a teacher. Yes, I do, I said. Whether you choose BrightPath or not, whether you give us the $15 million or you give it to someone else, I want to thank you. You have given a platform to data that is often ignored. But I ask, whatever you do next, please keep teachers at the center of your plan. Do not fund programs that treat them as problems to be solved. Fund programs that treat them as the solution. They are the only one we have. Eleanor Hart held my gaze. Then, she smiled, a real smile. Thank you. Ms. Brooke, please wait outside. We will be 5 minutes. Sabrina and I walked out of the green room and into the adjoining hallway. The door closed. We were alone, in a service corridor, leaning against a wall papered in tasteful beige silk. So, Sabrina said, her voice high and tight, that was intense. He paid her, I whispered, the reality of it settling on me like ash. He paid my sister to destroy me. They are poison, Delaney. You know that. Now, we just wait. We stood in silence for what felt like a lifetime. It was probably 3 minutes. The door to the grand hall burst open. It was not a board member. It was my father. His tuxedo was rumpled. His face was flushed. He saw me, and his eyes lit up with a desperate, new kind of rage. The security guard from the green room was right behind him. But my father was strong. Delaney, he bellowed, stumbling forward. You, You think you have won? You think you can humiliate me in front of my... Sir, the guard said, putting a hand on his chest, you need to lower your voice. Get your hands off me. That is my daughter. He lunged, pushing past the guard, and grabbed my arm, not a threatening grip this time, a desperate, pleading one. Delaney, you have to fix this, he hissed, his voice a drunken, wet plea. This is a misunderstanding. You have to tell them. Tell them it was a strategy. A test. Let go of me, Dad. No, you will listen. I built this family. I built you. You owe me. You think you are better than us? You are nothing without my name. You are just a... Mr. Brooke? A voice cut through the air like a razor. Logan Harrington was standing in the doorway of the green room. The board was arrayed behind him. You are no longer a guest at this event, Logan said, his voice flat. Security, please escort this man out of the building. If he resists, have him arrested for trespassing. The guard, now reinforced by another, did not hesitate. They each took one of my father's arms. You cannot do this, Robert roared. I am... You are leaving, Logan said. My father's face, in that last moment, as they pulled him away, was not angry, it was terrified. He was a man watching his entire world, the world he built on fear and appearances, dissolve in front of him. They dragged him down the hall. His shouts echoed, then were cut off. The hallway was quiet again. I was shaking. My arm throbbed where he had grabbed it. I straightened my suit jacket. I turned, with Sabrina, to face the board. Eleanor Hart walked toward me, her face unreadable. I stood up straight. I breathed in. I breathed out. I was ready for the verdict. Eleanor Hart looked at the mess in the hallway, at my father's retreating, shouting form. She looked at me, my arms still throbbing, my entire body shaking with a mixture of adrenaline and rage. She did not offer a word of comfort. She was not a mother. She was an executive. Well, she said, her voice dry, now that the housekeeping is concluded. She turned, a signal to the board members. Let us finish this. She did not wait for us. She strode out of the corridor and back into the main hall. The 15-minute intermission had only lasted 10, but the room was electric. The audience, having been dismissed, had clustered in buzzing, anxious groups. They were not drinking champagne. They were gossiping, their heads together, glancing toward the stage, toward table 1, toward the hallway where I had disappeared. They were hungry for the end of the story. They fell silent when Eleanor walked to the podium. It was a silence so total, it felt like a physical weight. Ms. Brooke, Ms. Cole, Logan said quietly from the doorway. He nodded toward the stage. Join her. Sabrina grabbed my hand. Her palm was ice cold. This is it, Del. We walked out. I felt like I was walking on a different planet. The 500 pairs of eyes locked onto me. I was no longer the sideshow to my family's drama. I was the main event. We took our places in the front row, as instructed. Eleanor Hart looked over the crowd, her face calm, authoritative, as if nothing unusual had happened at all. Thank you for your patience, she began, her voice ringing with amplified power. The Harrington Philanthropy Group hosts this gala every year for a single purpose, to identify and fund the future. Not just to reward past success, but to invest in scalable, measurable, and ethical change. She paused, and I felt her eyes find me in the front row. We reviewed dozens of remarkable applications, but one, in particular, demonstrated a revolutionary combination of data-driven results, scalable infrastructure, and most importantly, a core philosophy of profound integrity. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. It is my profound honor, Eleanor said, a small, genuine smile touching her lips, to announce that the Harrington National Education Grant, a commitment of $15 million over the next 5 years, is awarded to the Bright Path Initiative. The name echoed. For a second, there was silence. I felt Sabrina's nails dig into my arm. I felt my own body, unable to process the words. 15 million. Then, the applause. It was not the polite applause of the wealthy. It was a roar. It was the superintendents in the back. It was the other nonprofit leaders. It was Logan, standing at the side of the stage, clapping. It was a thunderclap that shook the entire building. "Delaney," Sabrina whispered, and I realized she was crying, tears streaming down her face. "Delaney, we did it." I stood up, but I did not know why. I was numb. "Ms. Brooke? Ms. Cole?" Eleanor said, beckoning us to the stage. We walked up the small stairs, my legs feeling like they were miles away. I shook Eleanor's hand. It was firm and dry. "This is not a gift, Ms. Brooke," she said, her voice low. "Just for me." As the applause continued, "This is a weapon. Use it." She turned back to the audience. "This grant will be dispersed with $3 million in the first year to facilitate the 5-state expansion. It comes, of course, with our standard conditions. All data will be open source. All financials will be subject to a binding, independent annual audit, and the core model will be shared, published, and replicated for the public good. We are not just funding one company, we are funding a new standard." The flashbulbs were blinding. The press, which had been held at the edges of the room, now broke free. They surged toward the stage, a wall of cameras and microphones. "Ms. Brooke, over here." "Delaney, how does it feel?" A reporter from the Denver Ledger, the one I recognized from the front row, was already shouting into his phone. "Run it. The headline is, 'Denver Teacher Wins Largest Grant at Harrington Gala.'" Yes, the teacher. The one. Just run it. I was blinded, deafened, and completely overwhelmed. And then, I heard a new sound. It cut through the noise, not because it was loud, but because it was so sharp. "No!" It was a single, wailing cry. The press, like a school of sharks, smelled the blood. The cameras pivoted. They turned toward table 1. Ethan Harrington was on his feet. He looked pale, but his jaw was set. He was not looking at me. He was looking at the reporters. "A statement," a reporter shouted. "Mr. Harrington, what about the rumors?" "This is not a rumor," Ethan said, his voice shaking but clear. He had become his brother. He was doing damage control. "Due to a severe and deeply disturbing lack of personal integrity and basic honesty that has just come to my attention." He looked, just for a second, at Vivian, who was staring at him, her face a mask of disbelief. "My engagement to Miss Vivian Brooke is terminated, effective immediately." Vivian made a sound I will never forget. It was not a sound of sadness. It was the sound of a building collapsing, a hollow, guttural breaking. She stood up, her chair clattering to the floor. "Vivian," my mother started, rising from her chair, her hand outstretched. Vivian did not look at her. She did not look at anyone. She turned, her champagne-colored dress suddenly looking cheap and theatrical, and she ran. She ran out of the grand hall, pushing past a waiter, her sobs echoing behind her. My mother, her arms still outstretched, was frozen. She looked at Vivian's fleeing back. Then, her eyes found mine, across the sea of reporters. She was trapped between the daughter who had just imploded and the daughter who had just been crowned. I held her gaze. I did not move. And then, I gave a small, almost imperceptible shake of my head. No, not this time. My mother's hand fell. The color drained from her face. She understood. The choice had been made, and she was on the wrong side. She slowly, mechanically, sat back down in her chair, alone at the table, a perfect statue of emerald green, surrounded by the ruins. The chaos was absolute. The reporters were torn, half of them chasing Vivian, the other half still shouting at me. And then, a new voice, a drunken, desperate roar from the entryway. "That's my daughter!" It was Robert. He had not gotten back in. He was at the main doors, screaming at the press as they ran past him. "Did you hear me?" Delaney Brooke. She's mine. It was my guidance. I've been guiding her since she was a child. I told her this was the path. A few of the reporters, the ones who had seen him ejected, actually laughed. It was a short, sharp, barking laugh. He was not a titan. He was not a threat. He was a punchline. The man who had banned his daughter from the party was now trying to take credit for her victory. It was the most pathetic thing I had ever seen. The noise, the flashes, the shouting, it was too much. Then, a sudden, piercing calm. Logan Harrington had taken the main podium. He did not speak. He just stood there, and slowly, the room quieted. The reporters lowered their cameras. "Thank you all for a memorable evening," Logan said, his voice like dry ice. "The Harrington Group has always believed that the wisest investment is not in buildings, or in stocks, or in legacy. The wisest investment, and here, his eyes found mine, is in our best people. Tonight, we invested in our teachers. Good night." It was a dismissal. The gala was over. But the night was not. The principals, the superintendents, the education leaders, they surged past the press. They did not care about the scandal. They cared about the work. A man I recognized from the rural district panel grabbed my hand, his eyes bright. "Ms. Brooke, Mark Peterson, San Luis Valley, congratulations. My God, when can you start with my district? We need this, yesterday." I looked at him, at the real, desperate hope in his eyes. This was not my father's world. This was not a world of appearances. This was the real world. I took a breath. The fog of shock was clearing. "Next week," I said. "Call my office on Monday. We'll be there next week." "Delaney," Sabrina was at my elbow. Her face was tear-streaked but fiercely alive. "Delaney, check your email. We have 47 new messages. We have work to do." She was right. The victory was over. The work was just beginning. I turned to walk off the stage, to find a quiet corner, to just breathe. My mother was standing at the bottom of the steps. She was alone. She looked small. The emerald dress was just fabric. The perfect hair was just hair. She was a woman who had just watched her life burn down. "Delaney," she said, her voice a dry rasp. I stopped. I did not say anything. "Your father, he is—" She could not finish. She looked at me, her eyes desperate, searching my face for what? Forgiveness? An alliance? She started again, and she had to swallow. I was silent. I have always been silent. I thought that was how you survived. She looked down at her hands. "It is not—" She looked up, and for the first time, I saw not my mother, the wife of Robert Brooke. I saw a person, a terrified, broken, and profoundly lost person. "I do not know how to do this, Delaney," she whispered, her voice cracking. "But I want to learn. I will learn how to stand with you." It was the most honest thing she had ever said to me. I looked at her. The woman who had told me not to make it hard for my sister. The woman who had polished silver while my father destroyed my confidence. I wanted to yell. I wanted to tell her it was too late. I wanted to tell her that her silence was a choice, an action, a betrayal. But I did not. I just nodded. Once. It was not forgiveness. It was not acceptance. It was not a reunion. It was just an acknowledgement. I did not bow my head. I did not look away. I just stood there, on the stage, looking down at her, and for the first time in my life, I was not the one who was small. I turned, took Sabrina's arm, and walked off the stage. 3 months. It turns out that 90 days is enough time for a life to be completely demolished and rebuilt. The world did not stop spinning after the gala. In fact, it spun faster. The first week was a blizzard of press, lawyers, and logistics. The $15 million grant was not just a headline, it was a wire transfer. The first $3 million arrived in the BrightPath bank account, an account that Sabrina and I had once struggled to keep from overdrafting. Now, 3 months later, the chaos had settled into a new demanding rhythm. Brightpath was no longer a two-woman passion project. We had a real office, not just my living room. We had hired a staff of 12, developers, curriculum specialists, and data analysts. We had just crossed the 20,000 student mark. We were live in all 5 states of the expansion plan, and our metrics were holding. The 2.1 grade level jump was not a fluke. It was consistent. I had moved. I left the 4th floor walk-up and the highway noise. I found a 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet building overlooking Washington Park. It was not luxurious. It was just calm. The rent was reasonable, and the light was good. The 2nd bedroom was not for a guest. It was a dedicated supply depot. It was filled with whiteboards, stacks of donated books, and prototypes of the offline Brightbox units we were shipping to the mountain schools. My old life had been surgically removed. The new one was being built, plank by plank, on my own terms. The fallout from the gala had been swift and brutal. My father, Robert Brooke, had discovered that the wealthy society he worshipped has one unforgivable sin: public embarrassment. A video clip, taken on a guest's phone, of him being physically removed from the gala while screaming that he was responsible for my success, had made the rounds. It was humiliating. His firm, which prized discretion above all, did not fire him. They did something worse. They demoted him. He was moved from his client-facing executive role to a back-office position in internal logistics. He was, in effect, silenced, put in a corporate box where he could not damage the brand. I had not spoken to him. He had not tried to call. Vivian had disappeared for 2 weeks. When she surfaced, it was not with a phone call, but with a form letter. It was from a residential treatment center. She had enrolled in a 30-day program for gambling addiction. The $200,000 in debt, the money my father had apparently used to leverage her into sabotage, was real. The last I heard, from a polite, mediated email, was that she had completed the program. She was working in a warehouse, filling orders. She was in a debt repayment plan. Her perfect life, the one built on appearances, had been stripped down to the studs. And my mother, she had made a choice. 2 weeks after the gala, she filed for legal separation from my father. She moved out of the massive, silent house and into a small rental. She did not call me to cry or ask for help. Instead, she called to ask me a question. "Delaney," she had said, her voice thin but steady. "Those children, the ones who cannot read, is there a place? Could I help?" She was now a volunteer, 3 days a week, at the Denver Adult Literacy Center. She was teaching grown men and women how to read a bus schedule and fill out a job application. It was the first time in my life I had ever seen her do anything. We did not have a relationship. We did not meet for brunch, but we were building something new. I had laid out my new terms for her, and for the world. I called them my rules of engagement. First, respect is mandatory, not love, not affection, just baseline human respect. Yelling, manipulation, and passive aggression were no longer acceptable. Second, apologies must be clear. No, I'm sorry you feel that way. Only, I'm sorry for what I did. Third, change must be proven by action. Words were finished. My mother was, in her quiet, fumbling way, trying to meet those terms. It was a start. The work was my shield and my focus. The Denver Ledger had run a front-page story, a full-color profile with a picture of me in my classroom at Pinecrest. The headline was, "The Teacher Who Turned a Classroom into a Movement." It was a good headline, but it was the small things that mattered more. A letter arrived at the school. It was from a student I had tutored 3 years ago. A quiet boy named Leo, who had been convinced he was bad at math. He had just been accepted to the Colorado School of Mines on a full-ride scholarship for computer science. "Dear Ms. Brooke," he wrote, "I am writing to thank you, not for teaching me English, even though you did. I am thanking you for staying late to help me with my calculus homework when I told you I was going to drop the class. You told me not to let one bad grade define me. You said I was a scientist, not a failure. I am going to be an engineer. I just wanted you to know that. I kept that letter taped to the wall of my new office, next to the whiteboard with our 5-state deployment plan. I was learning to navigate a new kind of power. The world was suddenly open. Invitations to speak, partnership offers, venture capitalists who suddenly saw social impact as a hot new market. And then there was Logan Harrington. He did not operate like the others. He was quiet, strategic. He had become a background presence, a partner. We had a weekly check-in call, 30 minutes every Friday, no small talk, just metrics, roadblocks, and solutions. He was, in his own way, as much of a teacher as I was. He was ruthless about data and impatient with excuses. One Friday, he changed the agenda. "Delaney," he said, his voice as crisp as ever, "your numbers are solid. The board is pleased. Now, I want to talk about Phase 2. "Phase 2? Logan? We're only in month 3 of Phase 1. "Phase 1 was the test," he said. "The 15 million was to see if your model could swim. It can. Now I want to build a navy." He continued, "The Harrington Philanthropy Group is a legacy fund. It is stable, but it is slow. It is an ocean liner. What you have built is a speedboat. The board has approved my proposal to spin off a new, independent entity, a social innovation lab, for lack of a better term. It will be funded by us. But it will not be us. It will be agile. It will focus on one thing: funding and scaling disruptive models in national education, and I want BrightPath to be its flagship." I was speechless. "A new entity? Logan, what are you proposing?" "I am proposing a strategy meeting," he said. "Next Tuesday, my office, I am bringing in Eleanor and the heads of 2 other major funds. I want you and Ms. Cole to present your national plan, the one you put in the appendix, the one you thought was just for show." He had been planning this all along. The gala was just the first move. "This is not a grant, Delaney. This is an acquisition. This is a national platform. Be ready." He hung up. I walked out of my office and found Sabrina at her desk, which was littered with spreadsheets. "That was Logan," I said. Sabrina looked up, her "I'm too busy for this" expression firmly in place. "What does the Dark Prince want now? Our quarterly audit is not due for a month." "He wants to go national," I explained. "The new entity, the spin-off, the national plan." Sabrina leaned back in her chair. She looked at the ceiling for a full minute, her fingers tapping a frantic rhythm on her desk. "Of course," she said. Finally, "Of course he does. This was never about 15 million. This was a hostile takeover, polite style." "It is not a takeover if we are in charge," I said. "Are we?" she countered, her eyes sharp. "Delaney, look at this." She gestured to our new office, the new staff. "We are already running at 150% capacity. We are in 5 states. You want to go to 50? The responsibility, the pressure. It will not just multiply, it will be exponential. It will crush us." I looked at her, my best friend, my partner, the woman who had built this with me in a basement. "Can we do it?" I asked. Sabrina's expression did not soften, but a small, fierce smile touched her lips. "I will need to hire a bigger finance team, and you will have to stop grading your own papers." "I will not," I said. "I know," she sighed. "The team is ready, boss, but if we do this, we do not get to fail, not even once." I went to bed that night with the weight of her words on me. We do not get to fail. The next day was Monday. I woke up at 5 a.m., just like I always had. I made coffee in my new, quiet kitchen. I sat at my new, clean desk, and I opened the folder of essays from my 2 classes at Pinecrest High. I had kept my promise to Eleanor, and to myself. I was still teaching. I was Ms. Brooke, the AP English teacher. I picked up the first paper. It was on The Great Gatsby. The student, a bright girl named Aisha, had missed the entire point of the green light. I uncapped my red pen. I was not Delaney Brooke, the head of a multi-million-dollar fund, I was not the woman on the cover of the newspaper. I was just a teacher, and I had work to do. I sat there, the sun rising over the park, and I started grading. I felt the familiar, quiet joy of the work. I had won. I had beaten my father. I had proven them all wrong. But as I marked up the essay, correcting the grammar, challenging the thesis, I realized the truth. The victory at the gala was not the end. It was not the summit. It was just the door opening. I was finally fully in my own life. I did not need my family's validation. I did not need their applause or their permission. I had my work, I had my students, and I had a red pen. It was more than enough. The elevator doors opened onto the 38th floor. The air was different up here, thin and quiet. The carpets were thick, silencing our footsteps. In front of us, where a generic Harrington logo used to be, was a new, brushed aluminum sign. Harrington Learning Labs. Sabrina let out a low whistle. They really did it. This was not a meeting. This was a coronation. The boardroom was a glass box overlooking the city of Denver. The mountains a sharp purple line in the distance. Eleanor Hart sat at the head of the table. Logan was at her right. The rest of the board was present. The same impassive, intelligent faces from the green room. Delaney, Sabrina, sit, Eleanor said. She did not waste time on pleasantries. The board has spent the last 3 months analyzing your Phase 1 deployment. The metrics are, as Logan predicted, extraordinary. The model works. She looked around the table. We are no longer discussing if we proceed. We are discussing how fast. The consensus of this board is that the old philanthropy model is too slow. The education crisis is not a ship that can be turned slowly. It is a fire that must be put out. She leaned forward. Therefore, I have proposed, and the board has ratified, the creation of this new, independent social enterprise, the Harrington Learning Labs. It will be funded by us, but not run by us. It will be an accelerator. A board member to her left spoke. The board has approved a seed funding initiative of $100 million to be dispersed over the next 5 years. This will be supplemented by aggressive public and private partnerships with a goal of a $1 billion operating fund by year 10. $100 million. I felt Sabrina's hand grip her pen. Eleanor nodded. Which brings us to the final point of order, leadership. We reviewed dozens of candidates from the private sector, CEOs from tech, logistics, and finance. They were all brilliant, and they all shared the same flaw. She looked at Logan. He stood up. He did not look at the board. He looked only at me. He walked to the glass window, looking down at the city 38 floors below. They talked about educational product. They talked about consumer metrics and market capture. They had forgotten the smell of a classroom. They had forgotten what a failing student actually looks like. They had forgotten the work. He turned. His eyes were intense. We do not need another executive who sees education as a line on a spreadsheet. We need a leader who remembers why we are doing this. We need a CEO who remembers where the classroom started. He walked back to the table and stood behind his chair. Therefore, the board unanimously appoints Delaney Brooke as the first Chief Executive Officer of Harrington Learning Labs. The room was silent. I did not breathe. And, he continued, a small, rare smile touching his lips, we appoint Sabrina Cole as Chief Operating Officer. Sabrina's pen clattered onto the table. The contracts are here, Logan said. They are favorable, but they include one permanent, unbreakable charter, as requested by Ms. Brooke. The academic autonomy of the teaching staff and the teacher-centric model is non-negotiable, regardless of future funding partners. He knew I could not say no. If you will sign, Eleanor said. The press is waiting outside that door. We have a national announcement scheduled in 10 minutes. The door to the boardroom opened, but it was not the press. It was Logan's executive assistant. She looked flustered. Mr. Harrington, Ms. Brooke, my apologies. There is a Mr. Robert Brooke at the front desk. I froze. Not now. Not here. He is not asking to come up, the assistant said quickly, sensing the tension. He is not. agitated. He just asked that this be delivered to Ms. Brooke immediately. She held out a single, thick, cream-colored envelope. My father's stationery. I took it. My hands were trembling, but not with fear, with anger. "Delaney," Logan said, his voice quiet. "We can wait." "Do not," I said. I did not open it. I slipped the envelope, unread, into my leather briefcase. "He has taken up enough of my time. I will read it later. The work comes first." Eleanor Hart nodded, a sharp look of approval. "Good. Let's sign." As we organized the papers, the door opened again. This time, it was Ethan. He did not enter, just stood in the doorway, looking awkward but composed. He was not alone. A woman stood beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. She was bright-eyed, with a warm, open face. "Delaney, Sabrina," Ethan said. He sounded lighter. "I saw you were on the docket. I just wanted to congratulate you both. What you are building is incredible." "Thank you, Ethan," I said. The woman beside him stepped forward, extending her hand. "Talia Ruiz, it is a real honor to meet you. Ms. Brooke, I am a special education teacher over in the Douglas County District." I looked at her, then at Ethan. "Of course, a teacher." "What you are doing for rural connectivity," Talia said, her eyes shining with genuine passion. "The Bright Box idea. It is the talk of every faculty lounge in the state. We are all rooting for you." "Thank you, Talia," I said, shaking her hand. "That means more than you know." "I just wanted to thank you," Ethan said. Meeting my gaze, it was a clean, direct look, an apology. "For handling everything with such professionalism. You deserved none of what happened." "It is in the past, Ethan," I said. "Good luck to you both." They nodded, smiled, and were gone. The last ghost. The loop was closed, quietly, and with dignity. "Now," Eleanor said, "to the contracts." We sat. The press, a small, curated pool of national reporters, was allowed into the room. The cameras flashed. Eleanor spoke first. She outlined the fund, the mission, the $100 million commitment. Then, she added something new. "The board has also ratified one final provision," she said. "A portion of all social profits from the labs will be perpetually endowed to fund the David H. Teacher Scholarship, a full-ride scholarship for a first-generation student entering the education field." I saw Logan, out of the corner of my eye, stiffen. "This scholarship," Eleanor continued, her voice softening for the first time, "is established in memory of David Harrington, a public school history teacher in this city, who passed away 20 years ago, unrecognized by the wider world, but whose work and whose mentorship quietly inspired the entire mission of this fund." I looked at Logan. He was staring at the table, his jaw tight, his eyes were red. It was not just data, it was not just an investment, it was personal. He was a man who had lost a teacher and was now spending his fortune to make sure no other teacher was ever forgotten. He looked up, caught my eye, and nodded once, a shared understanding. Eleanor pushed the contract toward me. I picked up the heavy, expensive pen. I looked at the signature line, Delaney Brooke, Chief Executive Officer. The girl who was not good enough to come to the engagement dinner, the glorified babysitter. My hand was perfectly steady. I signed my name. The cameras erupted, a wall of white, flashing light. A reporter from the Journal shouted the first question. Ms. Brooke, you are the CEO of a $100 million national fund. Are you still a teacher?" I looked up from the contract. I looked right into the camera. "I am still a teacher," I said. "The classroom just got bigger." Later that day, riding down in the glass elevator, my phone buzzed. It was not the board. It was not the press. It was a text from a student, a freshman at Pinecrest I had been tutoring in STEM. "Ms. Brooke, I got in. The summer accelerator program at the university. I actually got in." I smiled, the weight of the day lifting. I typed back, "That is wonderful news. You did that. That was all you? The next morning was Monday. My alarm went off at 5 a.m. I made my coffee. I drove my old hatchback to Pinecrest High. I walked down the familiar, echoing hallway. The air smelled like floor wax, stale pizza, and graphite. It smelled like home. It was 7:50 a.m. The first bell would ring in 10 minutes. I walked into my classroom. A few of my AP English students were already there, heads down on their desks, complaining about the reading. I picked up a dry erase marker. I walked to the whiteboard. I stood there for a moment, listening to the chaotic, normal, beautiful sound of a public school waking up. I wrote, in clear block letters, "Your value is not assigned by anyone." I paused, looking at the words. Then, underneath my own handwriting, small, in the bottom corner, I drew the new, clean logo of the Harrington Learning Labs. The bell rang. Thank you for listening to this story. Please let us know in the comments where you are listening from. We would love to connect and hear your thoughts. Remember to subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by more people.